Her racist relatives openly mocked Lena's black army vet stepdad, judging his worn suit and quiet demeanor. They never imagined the decorated war hero about to be honored on that very graduation stage. The late afternoon sun cast a golden, celebratory glow through the tall arched windows of a university auditorium's reception hall. It was graduation day, a milestone Lena Hayes had worked tirelessly for. Yet, as she walked, diploma clutched in her hand, a knot of tension tightened in her stomach, dulling the shine of the occasion. Beside her, tapping softly on the polished floor, her black heels kept pace with a pair of well-worn, meticulously shined dress shoes. They belonged to Master Sergeant Malcolm Hayes, U.S. Army, retired. Her stepfather. At 52, Malcolm was a man of quiet dignity, his deep brown skin a stark contrast to the predominantly white, affluent crowd. He wore a slightly faded navy blazer that had seen better days, khaki slacks pressed with military precision, and a tie Lena had helped him straighten that morning. There was no flash to him, just a steady, unassuming presence. But the warmth in his eyes as he looked at Lena, the immense pride that needed no words, was a beacon. He'd driven 7 hours straight through the night, no complaints, just to be here. Her own mother hadn't made the 2-hour flight. Lena adjusted the gold tassel on her mortarboard, her posture a little too rigid. She felt the shift in the atmosphere before she even saw them, her mother's side of the family, the Crowleys, clustered near the champagne fountain like a flock of judgmental swans, all pearls, perfect hair, and disdain. The whispers started almost immediately, carried on the polite, conditioned air of the reception. Is that who she brought? The stepfather? Aunt Carol's voice, sharp and carrying. I heard he was just a mechanic or something before her mother, you know. Barely presentable. Honestly, Lena could have found someone more appropriate for a family photo. Lena's stomach clenched. She risked a glance at Malcolm. His expression hadn't wavered. Not a twitch, not a flinch. He looked straight ahead, as if their barbs were insignificant, harmless insects buzzing by. But Lena knew him. She saw the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw, the way his hands, clasped loosely in front of him, gripped each other just a fraction tighter. He was a master sergeant, a man who'd led soldiers in combat zones, yet here, in this polished hall, he endured their petty cruelties with a stoic grace that broke her heart. She wanted to scream, to defend him, to tell them about the late nights he'd helped her with impossible calculus, the steady encouragement when she'd wanted to quit, the quiet strength he'd offered when her biological father vanished from her life without a backward glance. Instead, she pasted on a tight smile and steered him towards one of her favorite professors, her hand protectively on his arm. As they passed a table where a Crowley cousin ostentatiously shifted her designer handbag away from Malcolm's side of the path, Lena's grip tightened. The polite laughter and muted conversations of the reception swirled around them. Then, a phrase, uttered by another cousin with deliberate casualness, cut through the noise. I wonder what her real father would think of all this. Lena froze mid-stride, her breath catching. The carefully constructed dam of her composure threatened to break. Malcolm, who had been admiring a display of student art, turned to her instantly. He didn't ask what was wrong, his perceptive eyes saw it all. Gently, his calloused hand, a hand that knew the feel of tools, weapons, and a child's scraped knee, reached out and briefly covered hers where it rested on a table. A light touch, grounding. It pulled her back. Memories, unbidden, flashed. Malcolm, in his grease-stained mechanic's overalls after her mother married him, patiently helping a frustrated 10-year-old Lena build a disastrously complex science fair project, never once making her feel foolish for her tears. Him cheering the loudest at her off-key violin recitals. Him sitting up with her through fevers, his quiet presence a comforting constant when her world felt like it was falling apart after her father left. He never tried to replace her father. He simply filled the aching void with unwavering support and a love that asked for nothing in return. He'd never finished high school himself, yet he'd pored over her textbooks with her, instilling a discipline and work ethic that were pure army. He was the rock she'd built her life on. And these people, her supposed family, saw nothing but the color of his skin and the age of his suit. The official graduation ceremony began in the main auditorium. Lena sat near the front, a nervous flutter in her chest. There had been whispers, hints from her faculty advisor about a special acknowledgement, but she didn't dare hope too much. Malcolm, true to form, hadn't pushed for a seat with the family, not that the Crowleys would have welcomed him. He stood quietly near the back, a solitary, dignified figure against the ornate wall, his slightly too large blazer making him seem even more out of place amongst the sea of expensive suits and designer dresses. His shoes, though shined to a dull gleam, were undeniably old, the leather creased from years of wear. The Crowleys, arrayed in a tight, judgmental phalanx a few rows behind Lena, made no secret of their disdain. Lena could almost feel their eyes boring into Malcolm's back. "Honestly, darling, he looks like he's here to fix the air conditioning," Aunt Carol stage whispered to her husband, loud enough for several surrounding people, including Lena, to hear. A ripple of stifled, cruel laughter followed. "Or perhaps part of the catering staff, taking a quick break," another cousin added, her voice dripping with condescension. Lena's hands clenched into fists in her lap, her freshly printed program crinkling. She shot a quick, worried glance towards Malcolm. He stood ramrod straight, his gaze fixed on the stage where the university chancellor was beginning her address. He didn't react, didn't even blink. It was the same unyielding stoicism he'd shown earlier, the practiced composure of a soldier who had faced far worse than petty socialites. He'd heard them, she knew he had. He always heard. But he chose, as always, to meet ignorance with dignity. This wasn't weakness, it was a disciplined strength Lena had come to admire more than any overt display of power. He was Master Sergeant Malcolm Hayes, and these people, with their shallow judgments, were less than gnats to him. The Chancellor, Dr. Alastair Finch, a distinguished man with a warm smile and a reputation for valuing character over pedigree, moved through the standard opening remarks and the initial conferring of degrees. With each name called, polite applause echoed through the auditorium. The Crowleys clapped with an air of bored obligation, their eyes occasionally flicking towards Malcolm, their expressions a mixture of distaste and smug superiority. They represented everything Lena had fought to rise above, everything Malcolm had quietly helped her navigate. Then, Dr. Finch's tone shifted. A new warmth, a hint of excitement, entered his voice. "And now," he announced, pausing for effect, "we come to a very special part of our ceremony. An award we do not list in the program, an honor reserved for an individual whose contributions, often unseen, have profoundly impacted not only one of our brightest graduates but also the wider community through acts of extraordinary courage and selfless dedication." A ripple of intrigued murmurs spread through the audience. Lena's heart began to pound. The whispers behind her abruptly ceased. Dr. Finch continued, "This individual embodies the very best of the human spirit, resilience in the face of adversity, unwavering commitment to others, and a profound humility that has often kept their most significant achievements out of the public eye. Their life has been one of service, both in a distinguished career and in quiet, personal acts of profound generosity and bravery." Lena found herself holding her breath. The description, it felt strangely familiar, yet impossibly grand. Today, Dr. Finch's voice resonated with emotion, "We choose to bring that quiet service into the light. It is my distinct honor to present the Chancellor's Medallion for Exceptional Character and Heroism to a man whose life story is an inspiration to us all." The silence in the auditorium was absolute, thick with anticipation. Lena's eyes darted to the back of the hall, to Malcolm. He still stood quietly, but she thought she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, confusion. Disbelief. Then, Dr. Finch spoke the name, clear and resonant, Master Sergeant Malcolm Hayes, United States Army, retired. For a frozen moment, no one moved. Then Lena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes, wide with disbelief and a dawning, incredulous joy, locked on Malcolm. Master Sergeant. Heroism. He'd never spoken of it. He'd always just been Malcolm. Her quiet, steady, unfailingly supportive stepfather. At the back of the auditorium, Malcolm himself looked utterly stunned. His eyebrows shot up, his usually impassive face showing a rare crack in his composure. He looked around, as if to confirm he'd heard correctly, as if his name, spoken with such reverence in this grand hall, was a mistake. The Crowley family, in their smug enclave, stiffened as if simultaneously struck by lightning. Aunt Carol's perfectly made-up face was a mask of comical shock, her jaw literally agape. The cousins exchanged bewildered, panicked glances. Their whispers, for once, were silenced entirely. Lena was the first to react. She shot to her feet, her applause sharp and fervent in the stunned silence. Then, slowly at first, then with gathering momentum, others joined her. Students, faculty, parents, row by row, the entire auditorium, barring the frozen Crowleys, rose in a wave of thundering applause. Malcolm still hadn't moved. He seemed rooted to the spot, overwhelmed. Lena, tears now streaming freely down her face, turned and beckoned to him, her smile radiant, trembling. "Malcolm." "Go," she mouthed, her voice choked with emotion. Slowly, hesitantly, he took a step, then another, moving out of the shadows and into the aisle. The man they had dismissed as a driver, a menial worker, the man whose worn suit and quiet demeanor had been the subject of their cruel jokes, was now walking towards the stage, the spotlight finding him, every eye in the hall fixed on him with a mixture of awe and, for some, dawning shame. As Malcolm reached the stage, Dr. Finch stepped forward to greet him, shaking his hand warmly. "Master Sergeant Hayes," Dr. Finch said, his voice amplified by the microphone, a deep respect evident in his tone. "It is a profound honor." He turned to the audience. "Many of you know Master Sergeant Hayes as Lena's devoted stepfather, a quiet pillar of support. What most of you don't know is the depth of his service and sacrifice." A large screen behind the stage flickered to life, displaying not a photo of Malcolm in his old blazer, but a younger Malcolm, in full army combat uniform, dirt-streaked and weary, but with an undeniable look of fierce determination in his eyes. Then, another image, a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, the headline barely legible, "Local Soldier Saves Platoon in Ambush." Dr. Finch continued, 25 years ago, during a peacekeeping mission in a war-torn region, then Staff Sergeant Hayes's convoy was ambushed. Under heavy enemy fire, with complete disregard for his own safety, he single-handedly neutralized an enemy machine gun nest that had pinned down his unit, then proceeded to pull 3 wounded comrades from a burning vehicle, all while sustaining injuries himself. For his extraordinary valor, he was awarded the Silver Star. A collective gasp went through the room. The Silver Star. One of the nation's highest military decorations for gallantry in action. Lena stared, her heart swelling with a pride so immense it almost hurt. He had never, ever mentioned it. Not once. The quiet man who fixed her leaky faucets and helped with her algebra had faced down enemy fire and saved lives. The screen changed again, this time showing a more recent photo, Malcolm, looking much as he did now, but in a simple volunteer t-shirt, patiently tutoring a group of underprivileged children at a local community center. And his service didn't end when he retired his uniform, Dr. Finch said. Master Sergeant Hayes has spent the last decade dedicating countless hours to our city's youth outreach programs, mentoring at-risk teens, and quietly funding scholarships for students like his own remarkable stepdaughter, Lena. All done anonymously, without any desire for recognition. The applause, when it came this time, was deafening, a roar of genuine admiration and respect. The Crowley family looked physically ill, their faces a mottled collection of disbelief, embarrassment, and a dawning, sickening realization of their own profound ignorance and cruelty. Dr. Finch gestured for Malcolm to step to the podium. A university official presented him with the Chancellor's Medallion, a heavy, ornate award, which Malcolm accepted with a simple, humble nod. He looked out at the sea of faces, some tearful, some beaming, some utterly aghast. His gaze found Lena's, and a small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, a little rough, not the voice of a practiced orator, but of a man used to speaking truth plainly. "Thank you, Chancellor Finch, and the university," he began. I wasn't expecting any of this. Truly." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "What I did, back then, you do what you have to do for your brothers, for your country. It's not for awards. It's about duty. About getting everyone home." He looked down at the medallion in his hand. "And what I do now, with the community, with the kids, that's just paying it forward. Someone once gave me a chance when I didn't have much. It's only right to do the same." His eyes returned to Lena, and his voice softened, filled with an emotion that resonated through the silent hall. "But my greatest pride," he said, his voice thickening slightly, "isn't a medal. It's not an award. It's her." He gestured towards Lena. "This young woman, Lena Hayes, is the bravest, smartest, most resilient person I know. She faced down her own battles, worked harder than anyone, and never gave up. Her biological father walked away when she was just a girl. I tried to be there. To show up. To let her know she wasn't alone and that she could achieve anything she set her mind to." He looked directly at Lena, his love for her an almost tangible force. "Watching you graduate today, Lena, seeing all you've become, that is my greatest honor. You are my hero." Lena was openly weeping now, not caring who saw. The entire auditorium was on its feet, the applause thundering, a genuine, heartfelt ovation for this quiet, unassuming man who had shown them all the true meaning of heroism, sacrifice, and fatherhood. Even some of the Crowleys were hesitantly, awkwardly, clapping, their faces flushed with shame. Later, at the somewhat subdued reception, the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The Crowleys, who had once held court, now hovered uncertainly at the periphery. Aunt Carol approached Malcolm and Lena, her usual imperious demeanor replaced by a flustered, almost pleading expression. "Malcolm," she stammered, we had no idea. It's just, well, congratulations." "Truly." Malcolm simply nodded, his expression polite but distant. There was no triumph in his eyes, no, "I told you so." He didn't need it. A younger cousin, the one who had joked about Malcolm's shoes, mumbled a barely audible, "Sorry, sir." "About earlier." "No need," Malcolm said quietly, his gaze steady. He wasn't offering forgiveness, nor was he holding a grudge. He was simply stating that their opinions, then and now, held little weight for him. His worth wasn't defined by their acceptance. Lena looped her arm through Malcolm's, her head held high, her smile genuine and radiant. She looked at her relatives, then at her stepfather, Master Sergeant Malcolm Hayes, the decorated war hero, the community pillar, the man who had raised her. The man they had mocked. She felt no anger now, only a profound pity for their blindness, and an overwhelming love for the extraordinary, ordinary man beside her. As they walked out of the hall together, leaving the stunned Crowleys and the murmuring crowd behind, Lena knew that true honor wasn't about expensive suits or polished pedigrees. It was about character. And her stepfather had more of it than anyone in that room. Master Sergeant Malcolm Hayes' story rippled through the community, a quiet reminder that heroes often walk among us, unannounced and unassuming, their greatest medals worn not on their chests, but in the lives they touch. His actions, both on the battlefield and in his quiet support of Lena, challenged everyone to look beyond surface appearances and recognize true worth. What defines a hero in your eyes? And how often do we fail to see the extraordinary in the seemingly ordinary people around us? Comment below with your thoughts and pay your respect to the everyday heroes like Malcolm. If this story moved you, please like, share it with others, and subscribe for more inspiring narratives.